Welcome to The Enriched Nurse with your host, Dan Richmond. Enrich your personal finances, nursing career, and life.
Hi, I'm Dan. I want to help you work less, live more, and rediscover your dream career. Way too many nurses yearn for a better work-life balance, freedom from burnout, and a more fulfilling nursing experience. Nurses shouldn't have to sacrifice themselves. I want to help you enrich your personal finances, career, and life with actionable insights for real self-care. Not all this reactive nonsense to the main problem. Too much burden is placed on too many nurses. Look, I've been in nursing for over 20 years and an RN since 2006. I've worked part-time almost my entire career and seen the way nurses are treated evolve over the years. Unfortunately, incivility and burnout persist and was exacerbated by COVID. You can keep sounding the alarms on staffing, shortages, and waiting for someone to save you, but it ain't gonna happen. Learn to save yourself so you can better serve your patients and community. And of course, for a healthier you too. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review if you enjoy the show. Let's dive in. All right, my guest today, who I know very well, as we're married and have 2 kids together, is Ketura Richmond. So this is my first podcast interview, so we're going to do, one part testing the setup, but also want to make sure you realize just how cool we are in case you didn't already know. Well, I mean, Ketura anyways. I do have to do a trigger warning here, and no, not because we're going to talk about our personal lives or anything private, but because we will discuss nursing school. We'd hate for you to be driving somewhere and get distracted because we reminded you of surviving nursing school and the experience of it. So, okay, kidding aside, here's what we'll talk about today. Why being a per diem nurse and a mom at the same time is the best way to function in both roles. What per diem nursing is and why it should be every nurse's ultimate career goal in life before retirement, and Ketura is a per diem nurse. Also, why more nurses should be dancers. How Ketura wound up with a LinkedIn profile without creating an account, and did a live webinar for a national lactation organization. Also, we'll talk about her first course for nurses that's available now through the Oregon Nurses Association with contact hours and will be available soon with HD videos on the Enriched Nurse platform just as soon as I get around to finishing editing them. So let's start. So first off, Ketura, go ahead and say hello.
Hi, everybody. It's a pleasure to be here.
So how long have you been a nurse?
I became a nurse in 2009, registered nurse 2009. Yep.
All right. And where did you go to nursing school?
I went to Kauai Community College nursing program, and I got my associates in nursing.
Nice. And why did you go to nursing school?
There's that side-eyed glance. I think you pretty much talked me into that one. At the time, I was working as a Macy's sales associate and finding more and more it was very difficult to pay my bills, and also desiring a little bit more purpose in my life, to feel like I was actually helping other people and making a difference. And you had already going through the process at the time and talked me into the wonderful benefits of being a nurse with flexibility and the ability to travel and enjoy what you want to do in life.
Well, it sounds like I made a pretty good case and did a pretty good job.
Yep.
So how much money did you get paid to work at Macy's?
Gosh, that was a while ago now, but it was minimum wage at the time, and I think that was around $7.50, $8 an hour, something like that.
Wow, it sounds like a pretty good deal to literally walk around the counter, hand the customer the bag, and ask them one more time, did you see the belt that went with that, the pants? Did I get that right?
Pretty much it, yep.
Yeah. $7 an hour, that's crazy because I remember gas on Kauai costing like $6.50 to $7. So basically just to drive to work wiped out your first hour.
Yeah, I was working full time and had great difficulties just paying my bills without carrying a credit card debt, and realized that was not very sustainable. And that was without extras. That was just kind of taking care of the basics.
Okay, so you went to nursing school. It sounds like you thought it would be a good career to make some money and support what you like doing outside of work as well. What was your first job? as a nurse?
I worked in long-term care, taking care of elderly patients mostly.
And how did you like that?
It was challenging. The time restraints on taking care of 24 to 36 residents that part was challenging, but I really loved the connections I made with those I was taking care of there.
Yeah, so taking care of lots of patients at the same time. So I remember you had, you said like 20 to 30 patients. And I remember you had some pretty tough shifts, but what did you find rewarding about that work? Because, long-term care facilities usually aren't, like, it's not someplace I wanted to work as a nurse, because, it seemed like it was a pretty tough environment. But why did you find it rewarding?
It was the relationships I built over time with the residents there. You get to know their kind of specific quirks and what makes them tick. And sometimes they give me funny jokes, and they greet me with a smile often. I mean, there were some that were definitely challenging, but and to see some of their relationships together were really sweet. Some of the ones that were rooming together were best friends, and it was neat to see how they kind of looked out for each other.
Yeah. Yeah, and I remember doing nursing clinicals in an open-air nursing home, Mahalona, on the bluffs overlooking Kapa'a. And I remember always thinking, like, man, if I have to wind up in a nursing home someplace, like, this would be the place, because it had panoramic views. The staff was awesome. I mean, they knew how to pack that food into your mouth, get you to take it, and get your nutrition. Even if your attitude seemed like you wanted to eat as much. But that aside, man, like, those people got taken care of really well. And the atmosphere, I mean, it was really cool. Just open air. They'd do these field trips to the beach.
Yeah.
I remember that was a pretty unique environment there.
Yeah, for sure.
So what was your family's reaction to you going into nursing school? Because if I remember right, they didn't like that idea.
Yeah, I was kind of met with some resistance to that idea. I think my parents kind of thought that I was going to go down to this really unhealthy lifestyle going into nursing. And also, I've always been a rather creative person, and I think I got a little bit of, you're going to sell your soul, and you're going to miss out on your artistic endeavors.
Okay. Yeah, because what's your dad do?
My dad is an artist. He's been an artist his whole life.
Okay. And then your mom's kind of a free spirit.
Yeah, she is.
And, that's kind of ironic. You talk about the potential security from a career like nursing and, going back to Kauai, thinking of, when you were a teenager, like, why is that kind of ironic?
Wait, sorry?
Too complicated of a question.
Yeah.
So I know that Ketura, moved to Kauai when she was a teenager with her family. Tell us about that experience.
It was kind of an interesting time in life. I was 14 at the time, so I would have just been going into my freshman year of high school. My family picked up and moved kind of in a short amount of time to Kauai. We'd never been and visited before, so it was a totally new experience. And as you know, my mom did not have a house lined up, so we ended up camping, basically without a house, for months on end.
Camping or homeless, or kind of a combination of both?
Right, something like that.
Yeah. But yeah, it ultimately sounds like it worked out. But yeah, it is kind of an interesting take, to be like, oh, I don't want you to go into nursing, when you're thinking like, oh, but that's a place I can get job security. Yeah, I remember your dad was like, I thought you were going to go places, kid, not become a nurse. Because getting a college degree and graduating nursing school isn't a worthy accomplishment. But my family, I think their take was kind of like, you're going to be a male nurse? I didn't even know that was a thing. Huh. it wasn't as big a deal. But, you know, your dad, your mom, they've come around. They're like, oh, it's been a really good profession. And I think they might have even suggested some of your other siblings should become one. And it's interesting because nursing has been pitched to a lot of people, a lot of demographics that haven't historically made up large groups of nurses as a good opportunity and career in a place where they can find that job security and potentially create a great life for themselves. And then, of course, you know, those of us who are nurses think that's kind of funny because they're like, hey, like you get burned out pretty easily in your first few months on the job. I know I did. And then also post-COVID, you know, it's like the surveys are like, hey, like the majority of nurses want to leave the profession. I think the frustration's real, but I think the majority who actually want to leave the profession probably isn't that high. But the dissatisfaction of like, yeah, hey, this is a tough profession.
Yeah.
And your aunt, you had some family who were nurses, right?
Yeah, actually, I have two aunts that were nurses. And interestingly, my mom at one point, I think I was probably around 7 or 8 at the time. She was actually going to go to school to become a nurse. And she was juggling 4 kids at the time. And she went to the community college for a while to get some nursing education. She didn't end up finishing it, but as a kid, when she didn't have childcare, I was actually at the college campus with her. And I distinctly remember seeing a cadaver. And
Wow.
that kind of, the formaldehyde smell kind of stuck with me for a while.
Wow, your first nursing school traumatic experience
Yeah.
as a kid,
Yep.
sounds like.
Yeah.
Man, could you imagine going to nursing school with 4 kids?
No, I can't. That's probably why she didn't make it through.
Yeah, I became a nurse when I was 21, and you became a nurse pretty close, like 22, 23? You're a little bit older.
Yeah, I think I was about 24. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, you were a few years after me. Yeah, so neither of us had kids, but man, there were quite a few people in my program who, you know, were quite a bit older than me, and like this was their second, third career choice.
Yeah.
So it's tough. So I'm definitely glad we went through nursing school before we had kids.
For sure.
Because, yeah, I mean, I know I had an instructor who gave me a hard time and wanted to kick me out. I won't talk about that. But you had a pretty crazy experience in nursing school, you know, within a few weeks of graduations. Tell me about that.
Yeah, that was majorly stressful for me. I had been a straight A student, you know, always getting passing grades on my care plans. And then we switched instructors for the last term of nursing school. And towards the end, she was grading my care plans very severely and basically failing my care plans. And then at that point, I kind of added it up, and I was like, even though I got like all these high scores for my care plans early on, because she was not passing my care plans, like I was really at risk of, you know, not making it through the program my very last term of nursing school. So that was incredibly stressful. And you had some good advice for me to go talk to somebody else about it. Another instructor, my previous instructor actually, who had been passing and said I was doing a great job on my care plans. And she was able to look it over and compare and say, hey, like, there's nothing different here. Like, this looks like this should be passing. So it kind of went up the chain. And then that instructor that was kind of giving me a hard time was talked to, and it was okay after that. But yeah, that was very stressful.
Yeah, I think in nursing, it's referred to as nurses eating their young, as if it's like not as big a deal as it is.
Yeah.
Because, you know, we also are constantly talking about nurse bullying issues, like interpersonal issues with like doctors and other staff members, power imbalances, like violence towards staff from patients. And then in the nursing shortage, and then in nursing school, you know, that's when some of these weird dynamics start. It's like, well, hey, maybe we should try a little harder to make sure people graduate. What did your
Yeah.
nursing instructor who tried to fail you, what did she say the reason she wanted to fail you? Because I remember the logic was pretty absurd.
Right. Yeah, it was very strange. At the end, we got to meet one-on-one with our instructors at the end of nursing school, and she basically explained to me that she was expecting great things out of me. That she wanted me to be on the nurse practitioner path like right away, and she was grading me on a different scale apparently without letting me know at the time that I was getting graded on a different scale.
Right, eating your young for their own benefit.
Yeah.
That's a pretty bizarre take on setting people up for success. But you got through it and you graduated, and just to prove that we're not deflecting here and pinning this all on the instructor as if it's a one-sided story and there's no other potential side. But what happened when you graduated?
Well, I graduated and I ended up getting an award at graduation as well for psychosocial excellence at the registered nurse level. And the interesting part about that is I think that instructor that I had was probably vocal in getting me that award.
Well, I guess there's that, right?
There's that.
But yeah, no, this isn't a case of deflection. Like, good nursing student, good nurse, and got an award. But pretty just kind of a weird situation with the instructor. And man, I've been in nursing now for over 20 years because I became a CNA at 17. Your kind of first exposure, aside from that cadaver with your mom, wasn't probably until you were actually in nursing school.
Yeah, that's
in your
true.
mid-20s. So you're probably didn't really have a clue just how crazy we all can be.
No.
But your mom had a clue. That's
I
why
think
she
she
didn't want you to become a nurse.
I think she did.
I mean, being a Broadway dancer probably would have been preferable, but
I don't know. I'm sure it would have had its challenges.
yeah. And you actually do quite a bit of dance as a nurse.
Yeah, I try to get it in there. Things have changed a bit with having a family and such, but dancing's still a very important part of my life.
Yeah, I was going to jump into per diem nursing, but since we're talking about the dancing, we should just talk about that a little bit more. So first of all, what's your favorite style of dance?
I love so many styles, but I'd say currently it's West Coast swing dancing for me, yeah.
All right, what is West Coast swing? I think when people hear swing, they think like hopping around, like top hats,
right,
big dresses,
right.
like 50s style.
Most often people will picture East Coast swing, which has quite a different feel to it. West Coast swing is more of a smooth dance. There's a little bit more connection to the floor, and generally you can dance to a pretty wide variety of music.
Including like modern pop and blues.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it looks really cool. No, it's really impressive. So how many competitions have you won as a West Coast swing dancer?
Gosh, now that's pulling back in my memory a little bit. I don't know, at least a couple.
Yeah, so you're in, you've got national points in your, intermediate level?
I'm graded as intermediate level West Coast swing dancer.
Which on social dancing converts to really good dancer.
If you say so.
People are always telling her how, I can't believe you're not a professional. It's hard to get those points, huh?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of competition. And actually, as a nurse, you were sponsored by the Oregon Nurses Association in Dancing with the Rogue Valley Stars. And tell us about that. What did your dance team win? Yeah,
that was a wonderful opportunity that was supported by the Oregon Nurses Association. And it was a fundraiser for Sparrows Clubs. And I was in a hip hop squad. And with my team together, we were able to get Judge's Choice and People's Choice first place in the hip hop squad performance. Pretty cool experience.
Yeah. And yes, the Oregon Nurses Association sponsored you. We were able to send a bunch of nurses to watch your show, which was cool. And then we got to represent the nurses. I think you were the only nurse in that competition, right? I think there was a nurse's aide as well.
There was a nurse's aide, and one of the couples. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So look, parents, I can still nurse and do dance.
Yeah, the other cool thing about one, helping arrange sponsoring that on behalf of the Nurses Association and also having a nurse represented is tell us about some of those kids in Sparrow Club.
Yeah, so Sparrow Club supports families, children that have severe medical needs. It helps raise money for those families.
Yeah, so they profiled some of the kids and their struggles and getting the support models in place, and as we know, a lot of nursing is providing emotional support, helping patients cope, and the Sparrow Club really tries to get other kids involved and youth to help support. And so I thought that was pretty cool, watching some of the videos and the profiles of the kids. And I think they even had a Sparrow Club who was on the opposing team, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you guys still beat them in the competition.
Yeah, she did a great job. Their whole squad, both the teams were pretty impressive. Yeah, it was awesome.
Yeah, pretty diverse group of people, and a lot of them had never danced before, right?
Yeah, quite a few of them did not have dance experience.
I've always thought West Coast swing dancing is a great style of dance for travelers to get into. So we didn't really talk about this before, but I'm curious if you think it would be, I'm curious I'm assuming you agree, but why do you think every nurse should be a West Coast swing dancer, especially if they're like a single traveler nurse?
Well, in my experience, the West Coast swing dance community has been very accepting, and just it's kind of like a wonderful built-in community. People in the community love having new people come try it out, and all my experiences have been very welcoming. So if you're single, it's a good way to meet other people, make friends. And we know a lot of people that have actually ended up coupling together. So that's also a potential possibility.
Yeah, I mean, there's conventions in like every major city in the U.S. rotating throughout the year. Almost every major city in the U.S. I think has a pretty impressive, especially the West and the East Coast, seem like they have a really strong social West Coast swing dancing scene.
Yeah.
Regular classes, regular groups. Nights where because I know we've gone to places in San Francisco and it's just kind of incredible how many social dancers will be there who we're used to seeing compete at the pro level.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
you just you waltz in and you get to dance like you're at like a major convention, but it's just like the regular social scene.
Oh yeah. That's the great thing. You go travel somewhere and you can look up where the West Coast swing's happening, and you go check it out, and you've got, people you can talk to there.
Yeah, and before kids, we used to go to a lot of these West Coast swing conventions, and you wind up seeing a lot of the same people at various conventions. So, yeah, I've just always thought, like, man, a travel nurse, show up, do your 12-week assignment. I mean, any nurse really, but a traveler especially. And then, when you're going to conventions and other things, you can see a lot of the same network of friends and other nurses.
Yeah, for sure.
And there's definitely some good nurses in the Portland area who do West Coast as well. Okay, where are we at here? So, yeah, that pretty much sums up the dancing. Let's talk about per diem nursing. So you've been a per diem nurse for how long now?
Gosh, it's been at least 6 years now.
And so what is per diem nursing?
Per diem's like a as-needed basis, and I mean, you can speak to the actual requirements within the contract, but generally it works out to about 8 hours per week in a 6-week pay period, at least at our hospital.
Yeah, so usually you have to give a set amount of availability for a schedule period, but basically a per diem nurse isn't actually necessarily scheduled, or it has to be scheduled for shifts. You talked about flexibility earlier. So we're talking ultimate flexibility as a nurse to make your own schedule, regulate how much you actually work.
Yeah, I love that part for sure, especially with kids. I know, like, even currently, a lot of nurses that get their vacations denied, or, struggle to have somebody else pick up their shift when they want to do something that their kid's involved in. And the wonderful thing for me about being per diem is I can look ahead and be like, hey, my kid's got this field trip on Friday, so I'm not going to schedule myself that Friday so I can go be there and enjoy that with them.
Yeah, it seems like being a mom and working per diem as a nurse really lets you enjoy both roles to the fullest, huh?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I know, like when we were both trying to stay benefited, that was just a real kind of big headache and a lot of frustration trying to figure out our schedules so that, we could take care of our 2 kids. So that kind of helped alleviate a lot of that frustration.
Yeah, I remember we were both working night shift still. We had like a, less than 2-year-old, and our schedule was getting less routine and seemed like we were getting scheduled some nights together, and it was awful trying to arrange childcare, like, grandparent or somebody come watch your kid all night long and then during the day while you try to sleep.
Yeah, and it changed too depending on what manager we had, because we both had different managers, and for a while they were pretty good with our schedules. They knew we were a couple and they tried to accommodate it, and then there was some changes and our schedules just kind of ended up all over the place, and that was a bit frustrating. Also, not to mention that, there's often requirements for working holidays and weekends, and when you have a family, that's tricky to be like, okay, well, Dad's gonna work this holiday and I'll be off, so it's kind of nice to have solved that as well.
Yeah, and you wound up moving from birthplace to short stay, and that even worked out better being per diem and short stay, because no holidays, no weekends.
Yeah.
So your schedule
8-hour
availability
shift.
was shorter shifts and Monday through Friday. So it made it really easy and predictable. So with the pay, so usually per diem you get paid an extra amount, so there's pros and cons, but how does the pay work for a per diem nurse?
Yeah, so I get a 15% differential on top of my base wage for being per diem.
Yeah, and that's pretty cool. I mean, the cons of being a per diem nurse are you're foregoing benefits, so that's usually why there's some kind of percentage or flat rate. The percentage is definitely better because, it winds up the more money you make, the more that differential is worth. So it was interesting. I was talking to a nurse the other day who, said, hey, I don't think my per diem differential is not very high. And I was like, really? Because at our hospital, it's 15%. I'm pretty sure that's one of the highest per diem differentials that you can get. Because I definitely know other hospitals have flat rates. They're like $5-6. And so just give you an idea of how incredible that 15% can be. So if you make $50 an hour base, 15% differential, that's worth $750. If you make $100 an hour, 15% differential is worth twice as much. It's worth $15 an hour, and so on. So, as you move up a pay scale, like a percentage differential like that becomes worth more money. And I got to do a little course plug here, because I find like so many nurses don't understand how these differentials work for pay. They don't understand how to maximize them, or they don't understand all the pros and cons, and underutilize so many other ways. I mean, a lot of nurses are familiar with working extra shifts and making more money that way. But man, there are countless ways nurses can make so much more money and do well by taking advantage of all the unique advantages and opportunities of being a nurse. So in my course, Maximizing Nurse Pay and Negotiate It, I teach nurses everything they need to maximize their pay. The per diem differential's a pretty awesome one. Quite a few nurses, I understand, you potentially lose hours, right?
Oh yeah, that's kind of one of the downsides is you can be scheduled for something, but for a day, but if you're not needed, you're going to be the first one called off.
Yeah, so if you haven't set up your financial level to where you can really enjoy the benefits of being per diem without taking on some risk. Risk being like if you get called off a bunch of your shifts or you can't get them, you're not going to be able to cover your expenses. But even being per diem, you still get a little bit less, but you still get a retirement match and access to some other benefits.
Yeah.
Like education funds, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pretty cool. I'm curious, so what have you used the education funds?
So I have, while working in OB, I went through and got my IBCLC, so my internationally board certified lactation consultant. I went through Portland State University to get that credential.
Nice. And so, yeah, I mean, like, why do you think so many nurses don't take advantage of tuition reimbursement or use those continuing education funds? Because you were an OB certified nurse too. I mean, that came with a pay bump.
Yeah. Why do I think they don't take advantage of it? Part of it, I think, is just the knowledge of knowing it's there and available to them. That's kind of a big one. And then maybe being too busy to look into it further, being intimidated maybe by the process.
Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, no, it seems like nurses are always super busy. And it's weird because you always see these surveys, you know, talking about, hey, what's your number one issue? And it's almost always compensation. And there's quite a few ways nurses can increase compensation. That's one of them. But we've actually, being a nurse couple, it's been pretty cool. We've been able to take quite a few trips using education funds jointly and, yeah, maximizing how we're using not just compensation, but other benefits being a nurse as well.
Yep.
Yeah, and so with the lactation consulting thing, so you're working in short stay, but you also do lactation consulting. And so kind of interesting, you've got a LinkedIn profile that you didn't actually create. So how did that happen?
Yeah, so I did a webinar with the U.S. Lactation Association, and they created that for me. It's part of their platform to get the word out there that I did a continuing education webinar on supporting breastfeeding and hospitalization.
Nice. And then you also just finished creating a course through the Oregon Nurses Association.
Yep, I did. Yeah, it's up on the Oregon Nurses Association platform, Ocean.
And soon to be on the Enrich Nurse platform as well. And so that has contact hours. So what did you think of that experience?
Yeah, it was somewhat cumbersome to go through all the objectives and everything that they required to do continuing education. But when it was all said and done, it felt like an accomplishment.
Yeah, no, it's a ton of work. It's important because continuing education is a way for nurses to learn things that they don't teach you in nursing school, and also, you know, highlight issues that are important. So tell us about the issue in the course and why you think it's important for nurses. What's the name of the course you made?
Well, the course is on supporting continued breastfeeding and lactation during hospitalization, and it's geared towards departments that don't generally take care of the breastfeeding or lactating patient. So I kind of delve into ways that you can provide safe and effective care for that population when it's not like your regular thing. Okay.
Yeah, because, you know, there's issues that can happen if breastfeeding gets disrupted if a patient's hospitalized.
Definitely. Yeah. There's some not so great complications that can come from that.
And then also it can, you know, be detrimental to the baby.
Yep. You got it.
All right. Well, I've been editing the videos, so I feel like I know more than I otherwise would. But yeah, so the O&A version's good, but I just got to say the Enriched Nurse version is going to have much less PowerPoint and more beautiful talking head videos of Ketura and full HD with fancy color changing backgrounds and slick font and slides. And you can subscribe or click the link in the show notes to be notified when it is out, or you can take it now at O&A's website, like Ketura said. But I would recommend waiting until the Enriched Nurse version comes out, because it's definitely going to be a lot prettier.
There might even be music in there.
At least 10 seconds worth.
Okay, yeah, that makes it worth it.
And you'll get contact hours for it as well. So let's wrap up here. So last, where do you think nursing is headed? And where do you think you're headed in nursing?
Wow, that's a doozy. Well, I think we've kind of talked a little bit about, you know, like the possibility of AI kind of reaching more into nursing and it being a little bit less human touch and a little bit more remote type stuff. That's probably kind of the direction nursing's going.
think more AI technology.
Definitely a possibility.
And I have to say, I'm, not totally cynical, but I tend to be kind of skeptical. It's hard for me to see how technology and AI makes things better instead of, exacerbating some of the issues that I think nurses have with the profession currently, and how, all the disruption from technology going to electronic medical records and all those things. Mm-hmm. It's easy to see how it could get worse and not better, but it's also easy to see how, it could get better too, right?
There's always that potential. We got to stay optimistic.
And where do you see yourself in 5 years as a nurse?
Man, in 5 years, I don't know. I have to say I really like what I'm doing now. I like being able to do the same day work that I'm doing pre-admit. And I also like doing the lactation consulting. I kind of like the variability of having both of those going on. And I find that I like the education component of creating courses and whatnot.
I was getting worried you weren't going to say that you want to be Dan Richmond's enriched nurse vice president of course operations.
Could I have that title?
Yeah, you could have it right now.
Okay, I'll take it.
I can't be the CEO, VP, lead instructor, chief sales officer, CTO.
If there's anybody that can.
Working nurse, dad.
Yeah, I think it's you. I think you could.
Yeah, no, there's definitely ways for nurses. I mean, we could be our own worst enemies. So the education thing is important. It's cool. But man, it is a ton of work. So don't let anybody tell you hey, I got the greatest side hustle for you. I mean, I work more on the course stuff, and Ketura was too. She got a taste of it when she was making one than I do in my regular part-time day job.
Yeah, for sure.
But, and I have to say, all those nurses out there for years have been going around and offering these courses at conferences. In the past, I've been like, it seems like some of these education things could be better. And it's just like, whoa, this is a lot of work. So thank you to all the nurses who do put out that education. And while, sure, we can try to make it better and engaging, which is, what one of our goals is with the enriched nurse, it is not easy. It's kind of crazy how difficult it is.
Yeah, it is a lot of work. There's a lot of thought and that goes into the process to make it, cohesive and all that.
Yeah, and part of that, and it's important because, you don't want drug reps basically training nurses to peddle opiates.
Yeah.
And cause epidemics and things like that. But that sounds like a great podcast episode title for another time. And I'll just drop, I'm pretty envious of Ketura with her per diem nursing. I think that's my 5-year plan. At 45, I plan to be per diem, and I'm well on my way.
I have arrived.
To becoming a per diem nurse eventually. But, one of us, having the benefits definitely helps. So if you're a nurse couple, one benefited nurse, one per diem nurse, sweet way to go. Again, that's probably a whole nother animal and another podcast topic. So, all right. Well, thank you so much, Ketura, for joining me on the Enriched Nurse today.
It was good being here.
Any other thoughts?
I think that's it. I think we covered a fair amount.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming on. I think it went really well.
Thanks if you've listened this far.
All right, bye.